Hey everybody, Connor here today at etrailer.com. We're going to be going over and showing you how to install the Curt T-Connector vehicle wiring harness here for our 2016 Ford Transit T350. So the Curt T-Connector is going to provide us with the most basic 4-pole trailer wiring connector. Now this basic 4-pole connector is going to provide us with the right-hand stop and turn signal circuits, the left-hand stop and turn signal circuits, as well as the taillights. So those 3 or 4 basic functions there are going to be equipped to tow most small to medium duty trailers. It won't work if your trailer has brakes, but in which case you could actually adapt this to a 7-way, which we have plenty of those 4 to 7-way adapters here at eTrailer. So the T-Connector is going to have a powered module box that comes with it. And basically what this does is we're not going to be pulling any power for the trailer lights from the vehicle's lights. We're going to be pulling the power straight from the battery. We're just going to be receiving the signals from the vehicle's lights. So we don't need to worry about any additional strain on our vehicle here, nor do we have to worry about any problems that we have with our trailer lights carrying over to the vehicle here, since they are separated. So here we have the trailer connector just routed out and securing it to the safety chain loops on our trailer hitch. We do have a nice dust cap that comes with this as well that'll help seal the connections from dirt and corrosion, creating any lighting issues. It's also going to double as a way to secure the trailer connector here to the safety chains on our trailer hitch. Now keep in mind, we'll show you this later, but there's actually a few different ways we can secure this connector. We can run it out down through a grommet in the bottom of our vehicle here to come out near the bumper, or we can store it actually inside the vehicle and just drape it over the rear bumper. We also have the option, if you don't like the way that it secures here to the safety chain tabs, we can actually permanently secure it to the trailer hitch here using a series of brackets, which we again offer here through eTrailer. So in regards to installation, this is definitely going to be something you guys can do at home by yourselves. We really don't need any specialized tools, nor do you really need to know a lot of mechanical knowledge to be able to do this. It's definitely going to be something I encourage you guys to try. It's going to plug in behind our taillights here, and we're going to have to run one power wire up to the battery. But aside from that, there's no cutting or splicing. So let's go ahead and jump into that installation now. So the first step of installation, we need to come to the rear of our vehicle here, open our 2 doors. We're actually going to be removing this threshold panel here. Now in order to do so, we're going to be taking either a pick tool or a flathead screwdriver, whatever you have, and we're going to be prying up those little plastic covers. Then down in there, we're going to have a screw, which we need to remove with a 6mm socket. So go ahead and do that now. And now we're going to have a few more here that we need to remove, and then we can take the panel out completely. So now, with all of our fasteners removed, we should be able to lift the panel off the vehicle and set it aside. We're going to take a T20 Torx bit now, and we're going to remove one screw here, one screw here, so we can pull the taillight assembly away from the vehicle. Now, once we have both screws out, we should be able to remove the taillight assembly, making sure we pull straight backwards so we don't damage any of the alignment tabs. So we had a little bit of trouble with this bottom one here. We just went ahead and took a plastic trim panel tool and pried it in there, and the alignment tab popped right out. But with those both removed, we should be able to remove the taillight assembly. Now in order to completely remove it, we're going to have a pigtail here on the inside. We can see we have a little tab there. We have to depress, and we should be able to pull it straight out and away. We'll repeat this process on the other side. So once we have our taillight removed, we're going to locate the grommet here. What we need to do is we're going to take a razor blade, and we need to cut a good size hole in this grommet, because we need to cut it large enough to allow the connectors on our harness to pass through. So I want to be careful that we don't pierce any of the wires when we're doing this. So as you can see there, we have a good sized hole in that grommet. We should have no problem sneaking our connector through. Now we'll just repeat that process on the other side. So now the next thing we need to do is we're actually going to be sneaking one of our connectors back behind this panel here and through the grommet. In order to do that, I simply just propped our carpet up here a little bit with a wooden block. And there's a couple fasteners here that hold the panel to this body All we need to do is get a little trim panel tool and just pry it outwards like so, just to give us a little room to work. Now it's going to be hard to show you this next step, but basically there's going to be a little cutout here that we're going to sneak our hand through so we can push the connector out through the grommet. Now we'll take one of our connectors here and plug it into the factory connector, locking it in place. So the next thing we're going to do now is we're going to go ahead and mount our converter box. Now I pulled the panel a little bit further away from the vehicle here to give us more room to work. We are going to be limited by the length of this yellow wire, but there is a nice little space just directly behind this wire harness here that we can mount it to. I'm going to come in here with a self-tapping screw and tack it into place. So once we have our yellow wire ran plugged into the connector, the next thing we're going to do is mount our converter box. I pulled our panel back a little bit more just to show you guys a little bit better, but we should have a nice space right in there, sort of wedged between our wiring harness. We're going to use the double-sided 3M tape that comes in our kit here to secure the converter box to that panel. Now we're going to take our self-tapping screw that comes in our kit and find a nice place here to ground our white wire. Now what I'm going to do is we're going to take our green wire here and I'm going to run this all the way over to the passenger side. Now we're just going to be really laying the wire at the top of this little metal here. So I'm going to clean it off so I can use some clear tape to hold it in place. So now that we're over here to the passenger side, just going to take our trim panel tool here. I'm just going to pry our panel back. So what I like to do now is I like to go ahead and just reinstall the taillights since we won't need to get back there anymore. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to decide where we want our four-way. We can either mount it inside the vehicle here and just have it drape over the bumper when we need to use it, or we can mount it outside and permanently attach it to the hitch. We're going to opt for the latter. So what we need to do is, if we come under the driver's side here, directly below the taillight, we're going to have a little body pan here, back behind the bumper with an opening. We're going to have a large grommet which covers that opening. We're going to simply remove that grommet. It just pries out. What we're going to do now is we're going to take the 4-pull that we have here and we're going to sneak it down through this pocket and we're going to try to feed it down through that grommet that we just removed. So it's a fairly large grommet, so it should be pretty easy to get it down there. Now if we take a look under here, you can see this large square hole and our trailer connector was just sitting right there. We'll just pull it the rest of the way down. So we don't want to leave that big hole empty, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the grommet that we removed, I'm going to cut a little slit in there so we can slide the wiring harness through that slit and then put the grommet back up into position. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to take the primary wire that comes in our kit here, strip some of the jacket off this so we can attach a butt connector and then attach it to the other end coming from our converter box. We're then going to take this wire, we're going to route it up inside the vehicle directly under the driver's seat where the battery is. So now I think the best way to get our power wire up to the battery under the driver's seat is we're just going to pretty much sneak it between the floor panel here and our side trim panels. So as we said, we simply take our power wire and routed it between the floor and the carpet and these side panels here all the way up towards behind the driver's seat. which you can see the remaining of our bundle here. So now we're going to take the driver's seat here. We're going to make sure it's in the rearwardmost position. And then we're going to have two T40 Torx bolts here at the front. We need to remove both of these. Now you may or may not have a plastic cover here covering these Torx bolts. If so, we'll need to remove those as well. Now we're going to slide our seat all the way forward. We're going to peel back this carpet here. There's going to be two screws here we'll remove with 5/16 inch sockets. Then we should be able to move the metal tray. Now we're going to have one clip down here. And then we should be able to slide the battery tray lid off the battery box. So now we're actually going to slide the seat back again. And we should be able to see the positive terminal on our battery here once we've removed the cover. So what we're going to do now is we're going to remove this nut here, which is holding the positive cable to the positive battery terminal. That's the stud we're going to be using for power. We're going to be using a 10mm socket in order to remove that nut. Now we're going to take our fuse holder here, strip off some of the jacket, and we'll crimp on one of the ring terminals that comes in our kit. So now we're going to take the other end of our fuse holder here, strip off some of the jacket so we can attach our butt connector. And we already did this, but we went ahead and took our power wire and we basically just came under the seat above the battery here and ran the rest of it in this area here. Next thing we can do is, we're not going to need this much, so we can go ahead and trim it. And we can splice off some of the jacket so we can attach the other end to our butt connector. Now we can connect the ring terminal here to the stud on our battery. And we'll re-secure it with the nut that we removed previously. And don't forget to tighten back down the nut. Now the last few things we're going to do. Number one, we're going to insert our fuse into our fuse holder here. And then we can reinstall all the panels we removed to get to the battery. And then finally, we'll test out the trailer connector. Now with everything hooked up, we can go ahead and test everything out to make sure it's all working. We already have our headlights on. We'll hit our brakes, our left turn signal, and then finally our right turn signal. And that will do it today for our look and installation of the Curt T-Connector vehicle wiring harness here on our 2016 Ford Transit T350.